Hello YouTube chess lovers and my friends, this is Gunjan here. Welcome to my 43rd episode of Chess Trap series. In this episode, I'm going to show you a wonderful high-profile counter trap in the London system from the white perspective. Now, there are various ways you can reach to the critical position. I'm going to show you one of the way: d4, d5, knight to f3, knight to f6, bishop to f4, and by far the most aggressive response is c5. Okay, e3, knight to c6, c3, and now one of the most popular and the famous setup by black, starting with queen to b6. So black queen is attacking on b2 square, and if you check this position in online database, white has exclusively played in the most of the game queen to b3 move, which has a very simple idea that if black takes this queen, then he is going to retake with the a pawn, and then open a file can be a good avenue for the attack. However, black can sets up a nice trap here, and even I have mentioned this trap in my Dirty Chess Tricks 26th episode. Black has a very nice move in this position, namely c4. So now it's the reverse case where white really don't want to take this queen and then give open file to the black rook. So accordingly, the many of the white players has continued with queen to c2, thinking that now we are going to open the position with b3. But unfortunately for white, black has a very nice move. Bishop to f5. A simple deflection move, so that if white foolishly take this bishop, then after queen captures b2, he is winning the rook, and in fact this is a completely winning position for black, so that's not an option. And sadly enough, there is nothing better in this position, namely queen to c7. But after that, black can continue with e6, and as you can see, I have highlighted by the arrows, black has a very simple plan: queen to d8, and then start pushing this queenside pawn forward, and white doesn't have good answer to this. Black scored hugely from this position. So this is the trap black sets up, and if you are white, you should certainly avoid it. So the big question arises now, how we are going to defend the b2 pawn. Well, the answer is very simple. You are going to play queen to c2, not only defending but setting up a cunning counter trap. And I can't tell you how many people has fallen into this, as they don't recognize the difference between queen to b3 and queen to c2, and they think that, oh, another big mistake by white, I am going to play bishop f5 so that he can't take my bishop, and then I will steamroll him on the queen side. But the matter of fact is, it is now black who is asking for the trouble. Before I move on, I like you to spot the difference and find out the key move which creates a huge problem for the black camp. Are you ready? Let's start. The key move here is d captures c5. So the first thing first, if black capture this pawn, then we are more than happy to lop off this free piece, as queen now cannot go to b2 unless black get two moves. So that's right out of the equation. And that means black response is force. He has to take this queen. After that, we will take black queen, and now black has two choices. The first option, a captures b6, which is most oftenly played, which I consider is a dubious try by black, as after the simple move, knight to a3, not only we are attacking the bishop, but in the next turn, this knight will sit on this juicy b5 square, which can no longer harass by the black pieces. For example, if black continue with bad moves such as either bishop to f5 or bishop to g6, in that case, after knight to b5, now you can see the dark side of this whole transaction. Not only black has some horrible pawn structure on the queen side, but there is already a fork looming on the c7 square. And to be honest, it is very awkward for the black camp. For example, if he plays rook to c8, then we have bishop to c7, and then there is a huge pressure on the b6 pawn. And the second move, king to d7, is absolutely very bad, as white doesn't require much imagination. He can clearly continue with bishop e2 castle, centralizing the two rook, and then hit back with the c4, where black king can find himself in a huge trouble at the d file. So all in all, at this position, black has to play bishop to a4, so that when this dominating knight comes to the b5 square, he can immediately chop it off. Okay, bishop captures b5. So the threat is very obvious. We want to play knight to e5. And actually from here onwards, the fun begins for the white camp. Well, to show you how dangerous this position is, I like to show you a model game where a 2200 rated opponent crushed a 2000 plus rated opponent in just mere 19 moves. In the game, black stopped knight to e5 with knight to d7. Well, now some natural moves from the both the side. Castle on the king side, e6, trying to liberate the last piece, rook to d1, bishop to e7, and black is just one move away from the castle. But guess what? White didn't even give time for that. He lashed out with c4. Well, there is no good way to defend d5, so black plays d captures c4. And now here white can play knight to d4 and get a good position, but I think he chose the more aggressive response, starting with rook to c1. Black must be in a panic state as he cannot castle on the king side, and after rook to c4, the c6 knight comes into the huge pressure, so he decided to castle on the queen side, connecting the rook, defending d7, but missing the important tactic, that is rook captures c4. Well, how are you going to defend this? Black chose knight to b8, more pressure with rook to c1, rook to d5, counter-attacking the bishop, but very calm and good counter-attacking reply, knight to d4. And if you look at this position, black is really out of the move. No wonder black made the critical error from this position, continuing with rook h to d8. But just one move and black resigned. I wonder if you can spot it. Did you find it? Let's see. The star move is bishop captures b8. Bam! Well, black simply resigned in the view of king takes b8, and now bishop captures c6, and you can't take this bishop because after knight captures c6, you are getting the rook on the d8, and if not, then white emerge with a clear piece advantage. So I think this game is a model demonstration of what happens if white continue with a captures b6. Probably more tasting reply here is bishop captures b1, rook captures b1, And now a captures b6. At least black is generating the pressure on the a2 pawn. Well, not so surprising, white has some cunning trap here as well, starting with bishop to b5, inviting black to get a pawn on a2. Well, apart from it, if black tries other moves such as e6 or knight to d7, then white has a very simple reply, a3, and with the two bishop pair and the fractured pawn structure, this is definitely great advantage to the white camp. So to cut the long story short, black has to accept this pawn with rook captures a2, and after that we are going to continue with knight to e5. So as you can see, there is no way black can defend on c6, and even after the base sequence as per the engine, rook to a5 attacking the bishop, bishop captures c6, pawn takes c6, knight takes c6 attacking the rook. Black can't play rook to e8 because white has a simple threat, namely king to e2 and rook to a1, where this lack of piece development on the king side paid heavy price to the black camp. So accordingly, the best response here is rook to c5. After that, we are going to continue with knight to b4. So at first sight, it looks like there is nothing going on in this position and white is slightly better. But see yourself, after e6, liberating the other bishop, white has this very nice move, rook to e1. So penetration on the second rank is on the card, and there are two ways black can respond to this. Number one, if we continue with rook to c8, which attack the knight, well, time being we can put our knight back to d3, and now after some natural moves, bishop to e7 and rook to a7. Number one, black cannot castle on the king side. Number two, white has a very simple plan, including king to e2, double the rook on the a file, or maybe create pressure on the b7 file. Altogether, if you check this position in any engine, even though material is equal, white is clearly winning. But some of you will ask, what about rook to a5? Isn't that stop any nuisance on the a file? Well, yes, it can, except it cost a whole pawn for the black camp, as after the following sequence, rook captures a5, pawn takes a5, and now knight to c6 attacking the pawn. Okay, that guy is completely helpless, so he has to push on. But after king to e2, in the next turn, rook is going to munch that pawn. The best black can do over here is a3, separate our pawn, but nope, he can't take on a3. The simple reason is, after rook to a1, suddenly black find to his horror that he is going to lose a piece, and in fact, the game. That's it guys, I hope you enjoy and learn this wonderful counter trap against one of the most aggressive setup by the black. Remember, play the move queen to c2, invite your opponent for bishop to f5 so that you can take on c5, and after the forcing sequence, bishop captures c2 and pawn takes b6, no matter however black plays, as I have shown in this video. With the accurate play, it is white who has clearly better chance to get the full point. Thank you for watching this video. Feel free to like, subscribe and comment, and I will meet you in my next episode very soon. Bye and take care.